Rob Lowe was a teen heartthrob of the 1980s until addiction and scandal almost ruined his career. But 30 years ago, he turned his life around and has since become a huge star of the small screen with shows like The West Wing, Parks and Recreation, and now Wild Bill. I went to meet him in Monaco.
Hello.
Rob Lowe, hello.
Hello.
So you just got into Monaco not too long ago. Do you have a favorite Monaco story? I know you've been here before.
My favorite thing about Monaco is opening up the drapes in the morning and looking out at the view and going, I'm in Monaco. And it's one of the most beautiful places in the planet. I like walking around the hairpin turn and imagining what that's like in a race car. Don't want to do it. I'm not one of those actors that wants to race per se, but I'd like to look at it one day.
So you're here to talk about Wild Bill, which is your new show. It's kind of a fish out of water show where you play an American cop who goes to live in the UK. What was it like filming that show?
Well, it was fun because not only does my character come from America to the UK, but comes to a very specific place in the UK that really, I don't think there's ever been a show set, which is the sort of Midlands of the country, Lincolnshire, Boston, Lincolnshire, which is, you know, it's the home of Brexit. It's not the kind of life you're going to see in London. And so it really is a perfect place to set a show that's different and original and that nobody's ever seen before.
I'm the new chief constable.
You're American.
I'm not like everyone else, sir. I'm excited you're here.
Well, that's a first.
Boston's got the highest murder rate in England.
Miami, we had 150.
Hey, Boston, Bill. Brits don't like boasters.
And how did you personally feel while you were shooting? Did you feel a little fish out of water there? What was the hardest thing?
Well, listen, anytime you're working with other actors and you cannot understand anything they're saying, it's perfect because you don't have to do any acting. You know, my character is naive to the ways of the English. I happen to have spent a lot of time in the UK and love it.
What's the biggest difference between shooting in the UK and shooting in the States?
Shooting in the UK is much more civilized in terms of the hours, which is great. You know, people get to go home and be with their families, you know. In the United States, we shoot a minimum of 12 hours a day, no matter what. Like if we shoot a 12-hour day, we're like, oh, this is great. We got off early.
Brexit gets woven into this show as well. What was the strangest thing you saw about British politics when you were there?
Oh, well, I'm a political junkie. I love the Prime Minister's comments, I believe it's called. It's every week. I mean, for an American, the notion of having your leader just get peppered and heckled and laughed at and
Can you do that, John Bercow?
Oh, I love him.
Order.
Order!
Order! Order!
He was my favorite person I discovered on the trip. I'm a huge fan. I'm having my people set up a meeting.
Now, you have another new TV show in the works as well. It's a spin-off of 911. It's called Lone Star. It's set in Texas. That comes from creator Ryan Murphy. Now, he was behind hits like Glee and Nip Tuck. You're also executive producing that show. Is it important to you?
As Wild Bill, as well.
As well as Wild Bill. Is it important to you to keep control in some sort on what you do these days?
Well, it's funny. When you're working with somebody like Ryan Murphy, here's the control. Whatever you want, Ryan. He's Ryan Murphy.
Yeah.
When you sign up for a Ryan Murphy show, you want the whole Ryan Murphy, Brad Falchuk experience, and they're coming up with great ideas for that show. You know, on Wild Bill, where I'm working with people that I didn't have any experience with or didn't frankly know as well, you know, it's just an insurance policy that you're going to end up being creatively satisfied, as I was. But I do it as a matter of course because just being an actor for me at this point feels a little boring. I have more to offer than that, just in terms of the experience that I've had. So I like to be able to add my 2 cents.
Well, you have been in television for a long time. How would you say television has changed since, for example, when you did The West Wing?
The entire business that we're in changes so much year to year now. I've seen more changes in the past 5 years than I had in the previous number of years I've been around. It is the A-list place for actors, writers, directors to express themselves. I've always liked television because of the immediacy of it and the the quick turnaround. It's not much fun to make a movie and then sit on it for a year and then have it come out. I like that, you shoot something on a Thursday and it can be out, 2 Thursdays from then. It's kind of cool.
So you, of course, started your career in movies in the 80s. You were part of the infamous Brat Pack. When you look back on that time, on those films like St. Elmo's Fire, About Last Night, and all the craziness that went around, what do you remember?
Wow, okay, so let's see if I got this question right. 80s, Brat Pack, what do I remember? It was going to be a good question up to the what I remember part. I like to say if you were in show business in the 80s and you remember a lot of it, then you weren't in show business in the 80s. More than anything, I look back at that, and it really was the beginning of what has become the modern entertainment industry. When we started making movies in the early 80s and you were a child actor or a teen actor, there were parts for you, sure. Now that's all there is. Like, people did not build franchises, series, movies around young people until that early 80s phenomenon. So it's interesting to have been there at the birth of it and to see where it's all gone.
And getting back to the not remembering part, if you could give a piece of advice to that boy, what would it be?
I am so grateful and blessed, lucky, also worked really hard to be where I am today. And I wouldn't trade where I am today for anything. So I wouldn't want to change anything that led me here. One of my sons is a writer, actor. And so I'm in a position of giving him advice all the time, as he will happily tell you. And he listens to that much of it, just that much. And what I tell him is you have to be 100% focused. And if you can create as well as act, not just wait for projects, manufacture your own, today that's really a necessity, much more so than it was when I was coming up.
It's been interesting talking to people when I was telling them I was going to interview, and just how they've watched, so many people have watched you over the years age, and you've been very candid about overcoming your struggles with things in your life, about addiction. You recently tweeted your 29th anniversary, so congratulations.
Thank you.
No,
Thank you.
It's big. Why do you think you've been able to hang on to that and stay sober for so long, and what was like the flip for you?
Everything that's come since then is a direct response to that. So happy marriage, long marriage, kids, happy kids, a career that is enduring. None of that happens, none of it, for me, if I don't have the recovery. This is a business that enables sort of that kind of lifestyle, so you really have to fight for it if you want it.
You've done a lot of comedy in your career. You did shows like Parks and Recreation, The Grinder, A Little in Wild Bill. The first time I remember seeing you funny was in Wayne's World, Austin Powers. Back then, was comedy sort of an out for you as you were recreating yourself?
Totally, yeah. I mean, the irony is as a kid, as a really young kid and a young actor, my biggest influence was probably the original Saturday Night Live. But I never had a chance to delve into that until I hosted Saturday Night Live, which was and remains just an amazing thrill. And from then, Lorne Michaels and Mike Myers and that whole group brought me into the fold, and that continues with the new generation with Tina Fey and Amy. I've always managed to have fans in that area.
Had there been some sort of bias against you that you couldn't be funny because you looked like what you look like?
Who was it that the other day that I was talking to? I think it was Amy Poehler. And I said, it's so funny, I'm so far down the line in my career and I still get reviews or people going, I'm so surprised he's funny. And Amy said, well, because good-looking people aren't supposed to be funny. They've never had to use their personalities. I said, is that it? Okay, sure.
You did so many great shows in your career. We were talking about The West Wing before, but I heard, and you can confirm if this is true or not, that there's one part you apparently turned down. Is this true? Dr. Derek Shepherd, McDreamy, and Grey's Anatomy? Do you regret that?
Yeah, I turned down Grey's Anatomy, and I don't know if I regret it so much, but my wife regrets it. She's like, honey, that was probably a $70 million mistake. Look, would I have loved to have been on a show that was that zeitgeisty and important? For sure. And would I have loved the financial of it? Absolutely. But, I wouldn't have done The Grinder. I wouldn't have done Parks and Recreation. I promise you, if you're walking around any campus in the world and there's a 20-something, they're much more excited to meet Chris Traeger from Parks and Rec than they would have me as McDoctory, or whatever the hell it would have been.
McDreamy.
That's the one.
Another zeitgeisty show, of course, The West Wing. We were mentioning it before. That great role of Sam Seaborn in an Aaron Sorkin show where the dialogue is so intense. There were all those Hallmark walk and talks. Were those difficult to do? Did you ever walk into walls? I can't even imagine what that was like.
Well, I think they did a great job of casting that show because they cast actors who just, every single person in it had just a natural ability to hear Aaron's music, know the rhythms of it, understand how to do it. Frankly, there was really no learning curve. What's kind of amazing about that show is it arrived fully formed. We came out at the same time as The Sopranos, one of my favorite shows ever. You look at the first episode of The Sopranos, became great. You look at the first episode of The West Wing, it was The West Wing from the minute we did it.
You put together a one-man show, I heard, called Stories I Tell My Friends. It's the same title as a memoir that you brought out a couple of years ago. What's one short, surprising story you can share with us? The best one.
I mean, see, if I give up all my stories now, then nobody comes to see the show. I was on Parks and Rec. I was working with Aziz Ansari. I had also worked with Ricky Gervais. Those guys inspired me with the fact that they can go into a room, write something, and come out and take it around the world, and it's just them. And I did it as an experiment a year and a half ago, and the show today is played all around the world, all across the United States, and it's me just with an audience telling stories, most of which are not in the books.
You were talking before about your two sons and how they don't really listen to your advice, but if they could listen to one piece of advice that you could give them from your life, your career, what would that be?
Don't compare your insides to someone else's outsides, meaning you never know what's going on with anybody just by looking at them. So never assume that somebody has it better than you. And I've told both the boys to try to find something you love. And if you're lucky enough to do that, then you'll never work a day in your life.
Rob Lowe, thank you so much for being here with us. I know you are a proponent of a low-carb diet. How are you doing here?
This is the diet right here. It's lots of espresso. And also, I'm not a fool. When I come to Europe, I'm going to eat. I'm going to eat my way through Europe.
And then go home and get back to work.
That's exactly right.
Rob Lowe, a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much. That wraps it up for this edition of Encore. See you soon.
Your needs are changing, and so is France24.com. With articles, reports, the latest international news, all our programmes available on replay, together with live broadcasting 24/7. Intuitive, fast, and available in 4 languages. France24.com. Liberté, égalité, actualité.